next chat is especially for those sport tech lovers. By understanding data through the concepts of AI, the Web3, and even metaverse, we unleash the potential for global reach. The next panel is under the name Data-Driven Decisions Leveraging AI for Sporting Success. And the next speakers, they will be on stage in the next seconds, are Johannes Spors, Global Sporting Director, 777 Football Group, Jean-Baptiste Alliot, CSO and co-founder LaSource, Matthieu Lile-Palette, Senior Vice President, Stats Perform, and the moderator is Andy May, Director of Broadcast and Operations, JHM. So please give a round of applause for all of them, Johannes Spors, Jean-Baptiste Alliot, Matthieu Lile-Palette, and Andy May. Un aplauso para todos, por favor. Thank you, welcome. Bienvenidos, welcome. And Andy, for yours. See you later. Bye. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Hola, bienvenidos a todos. Thank you very much for gathering here. We've got three really good speakers to guide us through this session. Jean-Baptiste, Matthieu, and Johannes. And we invite interaction as well. Obviously, you can use the World Football Summit app, send some questions through. Hopefully we'll have time for a few at the end, and obviously it'd be great to get your feedback as well on where we're going with the session. Guys, I'll hand over to you one by one first of all, just to introduce yourselves more formally. Tell us a bit about your organizations. I'm sure most of us obviously are aware of what you all do from a broad perspective, but anything in particular that you want to share that might be unknown or useful would be really good to hear.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with the guys here on this panel. I joined Genoa in Italy a bit more than 2.5 years ago as a sporting director, and then 777 bought all these clubs, and we built the MCO around that. So I was uplifted to the global sporting director role, and with this, I mean, a lot of challenges came. And one was to make sure we have the right decision-making process in place. And as part of this decision-making process, one very important pillar is the data, right? So as with other parts of the football side, it was important to make sure that we have the possibility to make good decisions based on data on the holding group level, and at the same time, in the local clubs, expertise as a counterpart. I think that's a short description of what we did in the last 2 years.
Yeah, very good to be here. Hi everyone. Well, we are the data guys that Johannes just referenced. So I work for Stats Perform, also better known as Opta, which is the brand that we're going for in the world. What we do is pretty simple. We collect data, we make product with it, and then we address the football market with it, whether this is the clubs for performance purposes, the media, the big tech companies, anyone really that needs data. We'll collect it, turn it into product, and then send it to you for your own use. That's what we do, and obviously data is the foundation of AI, so this is why I'm here today.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again on stage. On our side at LaSource, it's, let's say we make a bridge between the sports organization and the new tech companies. So the idea is we drive support for rights holders when it comes to data strategy or innovation related to digital, and at the same time, because they don't really speak the same language, or that sports organizations need a bit to remain relevant but transform themselves, is like how they can best cooperate with technology outside, being the Opta, the Stats Perform of this world, but also other new tech companies that are here for their business purposes. So it's how you navigate these two spaces, I would say, and make sure they don't talk Chinese one to another, but can align and can drive value for both organizations.
I think we'll try and break this down into looking at AI in a sporting sense, and obviously more geared towards football, on-field and off-field. And probably, Jean-Baptiste, you're ideally placed with your background and your current work to almost give us an overview of both in the sort of high-level sense of what are we talking about when we say AI in football on and off the field. And I appreciate you could probably fill 40 minutes talking on that very one question alone. But if you can just sort of give us a few nuggets, that would be really helpful to kick us off.
I mean, I have 1 minute to explain what is AI. I mean, to a certain extent, and I will be very bold and maybe transparent, is AI is some kind of a new buzzword, so you all know what is AI, but to a certain extent, it's just allowing organizations to best maximize the data. The reality is that for sports organizations today is like, not all of them are up to speed when it comes to data. So if I have to summarize it, if you look at on pitch, it's how you can better use data, and so AI on top of it to, for instance, team performance or individual performance, or for scouting. So that was, Matt was saying, it's like you have different data sources coming from the clubs, coming from the leagues, being event tracking, biometric, or even like certain surveys. All these data sets gives you information on well-being of a player, his performance, all of that. The idea is like you combine all these sources into your own either platform or through a partner, so that after you can analyze it and drive business decisions. Do you want these players to rest? Do you want him to perform better? The training workload can be changed. Maybe for scouting, you're looking for certain areas of the pitch in terms of recruitment that could be interesting for you based on the age, based on the physical capabilities. So you get all this data, and at the end of the day, the usage is for team, player performance, or the scouting. And the same happens for everything which is off-pitch. So when you try to drive new revenue streams, whether it's ticketing, whether it's the mobility of your fans, whether it's commercial sponsorship, is like how you can grasp and gather more data to actually provide more value to your partners, so the sponsors, how you can drive more insights for the ticketing sales in terms of last minutes or reselling, or how you can also provide more information to your fans in terms of mobility around the stadium. So, I mean, for me, it's endless. Like you could cover everything, even from internal process in the decision making. Like you could use AI and so the data to perform better at an organization. The starting point for me would be, where do you get the data? Are they accurate enough? Are they good enough? Will they allow you to make the right decisions? Because you can have the best AI experts or tools there. If your data sets are inaccurate, a bit rubbish, then at the end of the day, you will make poor decisions. So that's where I see it for the time being.
Matthieu, on that point just made at the end there, or touched upon by Jean-Baptiste, you could collect data on pretty much anything and everything in a football sense. And let's deal with players initially and their performance, their training, their health. How do you, and maybe it's something that you can never completely get right, but how do you determine what are the best areas to collect data from? And then a part B to that question might be, you might also collect data at that point that's not useful right now, but it might be in future. So where do you dump that if that is the case?
I think first you're trying to listen to the market and what it needs, right? It's not, we're not collecting data for us all use, we're using data to be useful, right? So you've got to look at the parameters that clubs, if we're talking about performance, would be interested in. And then you try, of course, to be as compelling as you can. So looking at the granularity, the more you can capture, the better it is. The difficulty, as JB says, you need to be accurate and your technology needs to be solid so the data can be used. So it's, you know, what technology can capture and how you can transform it into something that's meaningful for the people that can use it. So this is how we're looking at it. And then in terms of developing the data into things that can be used, you're talking to your clients, you're talking to the clubs. What is it that you are trying to achieve when using data? Because something that, you know, we come across very often, and again, I work in data, I've done so for 15 years, but the reality, and I'm sure Johannes will agree, football clubs don't have data problems. They've got football problems, right? Data is a tool for them to answer those problems. So you've got to understand what they're dealing with and how data can be a factor in making the right decision to go against the problem they have. And our focus when we build products, when we're looking at what, you know, new type of data or applying AI to data to create new insight and new metrics, is trying to understand the problems that people face and that our product will help them solve.
Johannes, what are the main parts of the data that you have in front of you that are most interesting from your perspective as somebody who's very high up within a multi-club organization?
Yeah, first of all, I think this is very well linked to what both of them said. for me, in a club or in different clubs, it is extremely important to develop the right structure of people, to develop people who understand the data, who can translate the data to us, right? Who can read it, who also know what Jean-Baptiste said, that if something is wrong, right? Who have the knowledge of that. I think this is a point that is extremely important also for the future, to develop people who have that understanding. Also, the market of data is very active at the moment, right? A lot of new players arrive, some stay, some don't, some do not stay, some bring information with it that are very useful, some not, and it is always the combination, because as Matt said, we have football problems to solve, and for this we need the right information from the data, and people have to decide what we take and what not. This combination of data and manpower decision making, I think, is very important.
That's encouraging that humans aren't, completely out of the loop.
I think that's very much the case. I think I was talking about football problems, but I think, and that sort of relates to what JB was saying, AI and tech in general in football clubs at that level is still very much an HR problem as well. Like, you need the right people, the people that once, I agree, your tech stack is built, is good, and you can feed in it data, the people that can translate that into football terms that's going to help the decision maker take the right decision is something very important. I think finding the right people is something that is as important as building the right technology to work with. And football, in football, what you're trying to do, I think, and this is what we see with our club's clients, is try to mitigate the risk you're taking when making a decision. We're going to invest in a striker and you're going to put 60 million on it. You need to evaluate the chances that it's going to be a successful investment. And in football, the decision you've got to take are very important. The time to take them is very short, so the pressure is immense. So you're going to look at things to make you more comfortable in taking that decision. And in that, that's where you turn to tech, and specifically to data and AI, to try and mitigate the risk you're taking when taking a decision.
And just on the human factor, for me, it's like, don't see it as there's a AI competence or there's a data competence. I mean, you need to look at the data value chain overall. So you have the output at the beginning, so you'll be looking for certain people that can really understand the tech stack, the data lake, so really the basis of the foundations of your tech stack, I would say. And then the more you're looking at the input, all the business use cases, you'll need the analytical guys, but then after you'll also need the top management view, or a bit more of the intelligence, the business intelligence. So it's not like you got at the market and you say, okay, I have this 1 geek or 2 geek and they're going to solve me everything with my AI or my data. It's like you need to think as well in terms of the value chain, and for each of the components, you will need to find the right people to make sure that from the beginning of the data journey to the end, for the business decision and the top decision making that you will make, you have the right people at the right place.
How complicated is it to collect data from a technological side? If you're looking at a game of football or a training session, you can pinpoint loads of different parameters. How easy is it to then have that on a screen or have that collected? And how does it happen? Give us a sense of that.
You've got multiple ways to collect data. It also depends on the type of data you want to collect. Ourselves, when it comes to the event data, so everything that is done on the ball, we're actually getting a feed from the producer, and then we've got a team of people that collect, using the tool, collect everything that goes on the pitch. So that's one way to collect the event data side of the thing. From a tracking perspective, you have multiple ways to do it. I think when it comes to the big leagues, today still there's a lot of optical tracking still around. So you put cameras in the stadium, a set of cameras that allow you to collect all the movement of the players. And obviously you also have the GPS, what we call wearable technology, that you can use mainly in training, and that some leagues are also for competition football. And then obviously what has emerged in the last few years is remote technology directly, from a video feed, but collecting both the tracking side of the thing and the event data side of the thing. This is something that loads of companies have used to enter the data market. This is something that we've launched last year under the name Optavision, just collecting everything from a video feed, just using AI to do the collection. It's still a bit fresh on the scale of technology, but this is a tech that now works, and I think in the next year will be a prominent way to collect data, because from a scale perspective, it's just a lot more efficient, and you also, from a cost-saving perspective, that's better than putting cameras in every stadium in the world, and the result and the accuracy, with the learning of AI, is just going to get better and better. So I think that's what's going to go on in the next few years. I think optical is still going to be relevant for lots of reasons that I'm not going to bore the audience with today, but I think where the industry is going, and when we see and we look at the new entrants and even the decision we are making in terms of a collection technology development, this is where I see our business going.
I think for me the question is not how tough it is to collect the data, and the speed of travel is that it will be more and more accessible, more and more cheap. The thing is how you make sense of all that data. Because you would have the GPS, you would have the event, you would have the tracking, the biometric, you would have all the sources of data, certain transfer mark data that you can scrap, everything. Like you would have different data sets, a lot, and more will be available. But when you're a club with maybe one team analyst or with limited resources to a certain extent, because we're not big corporations in the football world, even the top clubs don't have more than 500 or 1,000 people for the bigger ones. So the idea is more, how do I make sense of all that data? How do I make sure I spot the right information to take the right decision? So the funneling and the digestion of all that data, which being collected, will be fundamental in terms of how that can lead to efficient or good decision making. So it's not, for me, it's not, the problem is no longer, or will no longer be on the data collection from an expense or cost perspective, or even technology is going very fast, and AI is actually helping a lot on that, but it's how can I make sense, or how can I do more with it while I have limited resources? That's going to be, I think, one of the key challenges for sports organizations today.
And it's another point where I come back, for us, for example, it's extremely important to have good people, good educated people who understand the differences, because we are working with 6 different clubs on very different levels, like from Australia to Italian Serie A, in Brazil, in Germany, Belgium, France, and the data is different. It's not everywhere the same, right? So you cannot compare with each other one-on-one. So you need people who understand the difference. Like when we receive reports for decision making, myself or even ownership level, you want it to look the same. You want them to understand that you are comparing apples with apples, but you need the right people who understand that there is. I mean, you need to invest a lot of work in making that.
And footballers aren't robots, are they? The males and females, even the most talented ones, they still need to settle into a new country. Perhaps if they're moving overseas from their current home, they'll have problems with getting a house and all that kind of stuff. So you can have as much data in a sporting sense, but obviously you can try, and I'm sure you do a good job at controlling as much as the outside stuff, but you can't entirely control it, and it's certainly not linked to the data, is it?
That's why, we always, when we speak about player recruitment decisions, and in the last 2 years we signed 180 players and we sold 287. So there was a lot of player decisions that we had to take. We always work on parallel in the traditional scouting and in data. And in the there is what we are aligned with is that we don't take a decision when not both of them agree with that signing, or also agree with that we are on the right path in terms of an exit, like the right price, etc. But it is always a combination. But again, if you have to make so many decisions, I mean, the data is, for me at least, development is like, it's more important than it has been a couple of years ago. And I started with implementing data into the football clubs in my Red Bull time. That's already a couple of years ago when we hired the first full-time data analyst. So it's a good development in the last decade.
How often would you say there is a clash, and I don't mean hostile, but a clash between the data and the human side of a football sale or
Well,
an
honestly,
acquisition?
I don't see this as a clash. I'm always super happy when we find problems, right? We need to, I mean, it's always our idea to have a very good definition of how does 100% of a profile look like? How does the ideal type of a player look like on that position for the level, for the club we are speaking about? It's absolutely clear that we nearly never will sign the 100% player, but we need to know, is it 80% or is it, and if it's 80%, what is the 20% gap and can we accept it? You know, because there will be something missing, but we need to understand what is it that is missing, because dependent on the playing style, dependent on the general squad planning, I mean, we have to accept something that is missing. But is it below 80%? You know, then it's maybe the wrong decision. Then it's maybe just good enough. And then sometimes not to hire a player is better than to hire the wrong player. And that's why I always think it is very important. That's the way we work. Is that when we have ideas that are, let's say, a little bit more data-driven, then the classical scouting is challenging these ideas, and the other way around. And that brings you more ideas, and that brings you, I would say, at the end, a bit better ideas.
Yeah. I think there was a perception of the market back when we started doing data, and I think it's very true with AI still, that some people were going to lose their job over data, or that data was going to take over and take the decision for them. The only thing data has done in the industry is create jobs and create data analysts, I think data scientists in football clubs, not only on the sporting side, but even on the administrative side.
I'd say it would make their job even more important because they've got more resources at their disposal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think people, globally have not understand that well. 5-7 years ago, maybe having data was a competitive advantage. I think now we sort of flipped it on its head. No, if you don't use data, then it's a competitive disadvantage. Like you've got to have it because everyone does it, and this is where what we've been saying comes into place. How structured are you then to use that data? Because ultimately, everyone has the data, everyone wants to use it. How good are you to implementing that into your process, your decision-making process, and using it to your advantage? Because having the data doesn't make you that special anymore. Everyone does it, which is really good for us. But,
yeah. On this, maybe I have two short remarks. One is the data depth, and so the idea of the more you invest into it, the more you are getting a competitive advantage, and that's just what you've said. And I think with AI, the gap will be widening. And the other one, maybe it's more of a use case when you say clash around data and everything. Think about the pitch quality. I think sometimes data is much more needed in terms of actually solving all these kind of clash and everything, because if there is something in football, is that it's sometimes very subjective, and sometimes a coach or players or referee will tell you the pitch was of bad quality, we lost because of this or that. At the end of the day, if you get very good technologies that can help you to have good data points to tell you the pitch was of excellent, of high quality, and that you kill every kind of subjective claims or statements saying we lost because of this or we lost because of that. At the end, I think data can also be very helpful in terms of solving this kind of clash and this kind of old way of thinking as well, which is very much subjective and not that much objective. So sometimes it can be the reverse.
Let's take a specific position, left back, for example. And maybe this is one more for you, Johannes, and maybe Matthieu as well. And I don't expect you to give away all of your trade secrets, naturally, but tell us the data points that are most relevant when you're looking to acquire, either on loan or permanently, a left back. What's popping up in front of you data-wise most prominently?
Look, then the first question will be, what is the playing style, right? I mean, this is, now we are in the profile building that is, I mean, super different, and this is the moment when clubs make the most mistakes, when they change coaches and are not aligned in the style of play, not follow the same direction, or if they change the direction, then they change it because they want it, but this is happening very often. So now you're in the profile building, so it depends on the style of play, it depends on It depends on the tactics with that. So if we look in Italy, we play Serie A with Genoa with the coach Gilardino. We play with 5 in the back. So the left back has a very, very different profile. Like for example in Hertha Berlin, where it's a very different style of play. They play with 4 in the back, and they have a different approach. So it's not so easy to answer because it is specific for every club and every coach you work with. Is it a more defensive or a more offensive profile?
But if we were looking, let's look at a 4-4-2 defence then.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to sack a manager, not you personally, but you didn't want to generally sack a manager and replace them after 6 months. You were happy with that setup. What would you be looking at specifically data-wise for your new left back?
I think I'm going to use the same technique as Johannes here. It depends who we play against as well.
So you're going to sign 3?
I'll try to expand a little bit. So, I mean, data gives you context, right? So when you're a manager today, on top of doing your own job as a manager, watching the game, understanding how people play, if you've got a contextual approach to the game on how you're going to play, if it's at home, if it's away. But let's say you play a 4-4-2. I mean, the era of fullbacks at the moment is very offensive, so there is attacking profiles are valued a lot more than they used to be. Left back used to be a lot more balanced. Now you're looking at the contribution in the last third, for example. You will look at the cross accuracy. There are things that generally come back a lot when you look at fullbacks at the moment. I think what my answer though would be what clubs I think are better at doing with the help of data is also trying to see if really there's a need to spend. And by that I mean maybe your next left back is playing for your under-20 team, and now you can have the data for the under-20 team, and then you can look at the data and say, well, maybe instead of investing on a player where there's a market, and I'm not the only one to look for that given left back, because if he's on the market, it's usually because he's got value and he's good. Maybe I can look at my under-20s data and try to put a development plan on my youngster team left back. But to do that, again, that goes back to the fact that I've invested in a structure that allows me to collect data for the under-20s, centralize that data, compare it against what I need for a left back to play in Serie A. So that goes back to structuring it well and understanding where my need is really. Whilst we're on transferring and looking at position, I think one of the things data has done is helping rationalize the investment. And I'm going to separate the market in two. There's the 1%, where you're one of the top clubs in the world, you've got money to spend, and you're buying a player both for the performance but also for the stages, because you need to sell shirts. There's a lot more than just the performance on the pitch that is at stake. For other clubs, when again they need to more rationalize, that contextual data in terms of making the right decision to invest is something that I think has helped them invest better than they did in the past.
And that's exactly where especially AI plays an important role, is the prediction of the most likely development of the player. So when does the player enter into peak age? So when can you most likely expect, when you sign a young player, when can you expect him to break through? Or if you have a peak age player, another very important point is, when do you expect the player to go out of peak age? And out of peak age performance is maybe the moment to sell the player, right? So the predictions around a player career is something where especially AI comes in place and is very important.
Certain data you would be looking at very simply is, you all know about the number of kilometers, the passes, all that kind of stuff. You will be looking at this. But after, depending on your style of play, if you're looking at this left back, is transition, defense, attack, defense, the space he's been creating, the chances of opportunity of passes. So not just the kind of, you've run more than 12K, we want someone that can last, 90 minutes with more than 12 kilometers. You're also looking at other kind of contextual data, which are more the space he's creating, the attack, defense, or defense, attack. And at the same time, when you're looking at this, please remind yourself that the other data sets you're looking at is, what's my overall strategy is like. I want to acquire a player under 25 because I know that He's below 5 million, under 25, 1 year remaining contract. So you have to put all these parameters. It's just like you have simple physical data. You can have other ones which can be more related to, let's say, new tech or what AI is allowing you to do. It's more predictive. It's more like in certain areas, how is it performing better than others in the spaces? And at the same time, you have the reality of the remaining contract, the age. And so all of that you put into the mix so that as a, I don't know, 10 stable club, you go like, I'm going to bet on this 22 years old because he has 1 year remaining contract. It's not going to cost me more than 4 million, but he's super good in attack, defense, attack. In this style of play, he's super strong. And in 3 or 4 years' time, I will be able to sell him thanks to predictive analytics 4 times or 5 times the price that I'm buying it now.
It can't be easy at all trying to predict what's going to happen with a player coming to the end of their career, particularly those at the very top where they have the access to great facilities health-wise. You know, Modric is winning titles galore still as he approaches 40. Ibrahimovic in Italy a few years ago, I think he was 40 when he won Serie A. How do you wrestle with that challenge?
Well, it is, the answer goes a bit into the same direction like one or two answers before. It is always a combination of the data and your own experience and I mean, the human power of understanding around it, because it is, you know, I mean, we are running the football clubs like businesses. We need positive football P&L, and we need to make sure that every euro or dollar we invest has a return, so the players develop. So that's why it makes sense at the right moment to sell the player when you know, okay, most likely the performance will decrease. On the other hand, we have a lot of examples in our clubs where experienced players have such a high value, not only with the on-the-pitch performance, but with the off-the-pitch performance, with help in the dressing room and being a leadership. And this is, I mean, again, something that is very hard to measure data-wise. So it's, again, the combination of your knowledge, of people who are educated and the data.
What's it like working for a multi-club sporting football organisation? You know, I mean, it's not that uncommon now because there are many, you know, city football groups, another one we know well of. You know, what's your position like? It must be really varied.
No, I mean, super exciting. The last two and a half years are amazing because you know, we onboarded all these clubs, and the sporting directors locally are reporting to me, so we make these decisions. We have been very successful. We promoted a team in Italy, one in Brazil, Vasco da Gama, and now Red Star in France. And so I enjoyed a lot to also understand the differences of the football cultures, the international approach around that. So I really enjoyed and still enjoy it.
Yeah, you must watch a lot of football.
I must watch a lot of football, and I need better data or AI to organize my travels well, because I mean that's quite challenging.
Yeah, well, you can almost be in a stadium now with VR, of course, with the headsets, and they're only getting better as well. And I suppose we could maybe move on with that to talk, Jean-Baptiste, about off the field and how AI can assist in growing fan bases, increasing commercial revenues. What are you seeing from your position as a leader at an agency on that off-field success and even some of the challenges as well?
Yeah, I mean, well, you have so many different use cases. It depends, but one that I'm thinking of just now, it could be the automatic live translation. So imagine you're a league or you want to broadcast or stream. Now you have plenty of platforms that can do it on their own, fully automated, processed, or digital overlay. But at the same time, if you want to have interviews being translated in every kind of language in a good and contextualized way, without having to pay for pundits or for people, that's something which will become way more affordable, that you can have live, so that you can reach out to way more markets than you used to be in the past. So if you are on a media rights strategy and you're thinking in terms of how AI can help you on that, for me, would be the kind of live translation, making the content more personalized based on the live translation allowed by AI. That could be one thing. Smart pricing as well, like I was saying, like smart ticketing. It's like how you learn more and more on the reselling of your tickets, or how you can best engage with certain fans in terms of providing them with more values thanks to it. So this is where I'm saying, and going back to what Matthieu was saying, is data is just a tool, and AI is a tool of it. It's just maximizing this tool to make sure you provide value. It was there before to the technical director or the scouting team, but here is for your partners and sponsors. So how do you give them more granularity and more insights or information on any one of us when we're traveling to the stadium, when we are engaging with the club, either through buying for merch, for a ticket, for going at a store, but how do you make that overall experience way more seamless? So it goes from buying on the app and everything like that, to going to the stadium, to your flow, to even the beverage in the stadiums. Now we even see it sometimes. It's like for the food and beverages, you don't have any more humans behind. It's just robotic doing it, but you have 10 times fast pace than you used to have, so you don't have to queue for having a beer or for having your burger or whatever that is. So ultimately, I would say it's not endless, but it's kind of endless depending on where you are looking at. And after, it's more, if you're working with the sponsors or anything like that, it's what do you give them back? Okay, you give them back access to your like brand reputation, because if you're sponsoring a big club like PSG or whatever, that's nice, but maybe you want to know what the fans are looking at, what they're interested in, and so you get way more granularity in terms of insights you can give them and how they can target them, because at the end of the day, it's the customer acquisition. So you get to know way better and potentially faster, and so you deliver more value to the sponsors that allow you to renew the contract or expand those, giving you more resources to have to perform on the pitch. So I think it can be very, very broad if you start looking at it. But again, for me, get the right foundation in place, the right people, make sure you're right on the data, because we're all saying AI and everything like that, but some clubs, they don't even have a single sign-on, meaning I'm buying a ticket for Betis Seville, maybe there is one data set just for ticketing. After I want to buy a t-shirt or whatever, it will be another platform somewhere else. Then I want to log to find new information, it will be on the website. So you have multiple touch points, and the reality is that for many clubs off pitch, it's not necessarily centralized, it's not necessarily up to date. So the way I would see it is make sure you have the foundations in place, make sure you have the right people within your company, and then after you can start building and you can add the layer of AI to maximize this kind of foundational layer.
I guess one thing to mention as well, whether this is off pitch or on pitch, is I think what the football industry likes about data. It's not only for the big clubs, and the investment you make on the player. Yes, if for certain players, I was talking about 1%. There's some clubs that can invest on those, but that's a minority. If you compare the price of building a tech stack, hiring people to build your technical structure and your performance department, the price of that doesn't compare to the price of buying a new striker, as I said.
And
earlier.
one that goes wrong as well.
Exactly. So everyone can do that literally from an investment perspective, and I think this is why we've seen the rise of data usage and AI in general.
We're almost out of time, but just before we do wrap up, guys, is there anything that you think you can share in terms of where we're going to push on from here? Where will we see development in the AI sports sphere in the coming, 3 to 5 years, for example?
Well, I think we are at a very interesting time, because, partly we are in a moment where a lot of data is developed to a very high level, and at the same time, a lot of innovation is coming into the market. And I think it's very interesting to see what kind of this innovation will stay and what not. This will happen in the next years for sure. And then for me, it's about the connection, right? It's at the moment this on-pitch, off-pitch data, and also inside the clubs. Sometimes when I look into clubs, it's like some different islands, and I think it's very important to connect this via communication, but also via the right tools, because I think that's some percentage we
and
can.
a general culture.
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a lot of possibilities to grow for the clubs.
Yeah, I think that change of culture you mentioned is going to come from success. You know, for people to keep investing in data and in AI and in technology in general, they want to see people succeeding doing that. And I think you've got more and more example. I could use plenty, but one of the most recent one is Parma Calcio in Italy. You know, back a few years back, 3 or 4 years ago, they were in Serie B, new investment. The first thing they did was not to try and buy half of Serie B in terms of the best player. They went and they picked the right guy, one of the most brilliant men in football, a guy called Matthieu that was at PSG, made him the chief performance officer, and he's built the whole structure going from nutrition to recruitment, also looking at psychology. And you know, they built from that to being back in this area this year and having a quite a good start. So that's one of many examples. But that's people are going to look at those success to then be able to replicate. And I was going to use psychology just now. I think anything that you can measure now when it comes to cognitive decision making and that sort of things is also a very vast and open field where AI and data is going to be useful in the next few years. Sorry, JB, you've got 10 seconds now.
In 15 seconds?
You can go over, don't worry.
No,
we'll have a word.
It's personalization and the product itself that's going to change. Like for years we've talked about something which is more immersive, more personalized experience that we can all have based on our preferences. It was not really possible. Now I think with the technology arriving and developing, we're all going to watch football differently in the years to come. And I think that's where we're going to head, just like for our social media and everything, it's all tailored to our preferences. I think football is going to take that path in terms of entertainment product.
Thank you very much. It's been fascinating from my perspective to listen in to you guys, and I hope for everyone else that was the same too. Enjoy the rest of your time in Sevilla. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.